Hello. So, in this episode, I want to talk about the apostolic. What is an apostle? And yeah, I'm gonna do my best. So, what is an apostle? The apostle is a borrowed term that Yeshua used during his time to describe the function of some of the people who were working with him. The term apostle is a governmental term. Using the Roman government as an example, the apostle was someone sent from that kingdom, from that empire, to another nation, to another territory, to shift that culture to look like the culture of the kingdom or empire that they originate from, or to maintain the culture of their kingdom in a land that has already been conquered. So when Yeshua sent out his apostles, he was doing just that, in that the kingdom of God, or as I prefer to call it, the empire of God, because I believe empire fits it so much better, is a government. It's a government. And one of the main missions of the empire of God is to bring heaven to earth, is to make earth look like heaven. So the apostles were people who were sent to make earth look like heaven. Or to go into locations that were already like heaven and maintain that heavenly culture on earth. So some were sent to do all the hard work, of at least starting it. Others were sent to maintain. But it was all about maintaining a kingdom culture. Now, when it comes to the topic of many offices, many functions, people typically get weird with titles, where there's nothing wrong with being called pastor, like ever, but if you dare call yourself an apostle, now it's pride and arrogance and things like that. In reality, also one of the more annoying things is that people are like, well, let's just drop titles altogether. And they usually only say that when they're dealing with an apostle or a prophet. They're like, why can't we just be servants? I'm like, well, here's the thing. Titles are necessary in any organization to let you know who does what. Helps you understand the callings, the functions, the roles that we all have. It's not a rank, as many people use it as. It's just a job description. Imagine going, for those of you who still trust the hospitals and you go there, imagine if no one identified themselves. You didn't know the doctors from the nurses nor the receptionists, and people were just in there touching you. It's like, oh, we're all just here to help. It's like, well, who's the specialist? Oh, we're all special. That's kind of scary if you actually need something important done and you got the receptionist who's not actually a trained medical professional touching and feeling on you. She don't know what she's doing, but everyone's special. We need titles. We need to be able to know what each other is called to so that we know what to pull on. In any other space, titles are fine. You need somebody to help you move some things, you call the strong guys. Nothing's wrong with that. You need something done quickly, you find people who are quick. You need help with organization, you call the organizers. Nothing's wrong with a label, nothing's wrong with a title, because they're not ranks. The apostles' specific function is to make earth look like heaven. And that's really what it is to function out of the apostolic. Now, I believe everyone in the kingdom is called to a certain level of the apostolic. They may not be apostles, but on a small level, we're all called to help earth look like heaven, turn earth into heaven. I believe we're going to be seeing a lot more of that being more and more manifested within the next 30 years. So 27 years from now, we'll have a lot to show for it. Because we're really just beginning on some things. But the apostolic is all about it isn't even about awakening what is already present. That's the prophetic. in that the prophetic is all about identifying the God-given purpose or the God-given destiny, the reason why God made a thing, and calling that function to the forefront. We understand that most things in creation, usually we only think of prophecy in terms of people, but places and things also have a God-given nature and God-given destiny and function that they may need to be called into, and that's the main function of the prophetic. In that, something that I learned from Yeshua directly is what a prophet is that a prophet isn't just a messenger, but they are a message. This would be the same thing as the avatars in the Hindu world, or the understanding of the Netter Patah in the Kemetic culture, where you're looking at divinity as humanity, divinity in human form. And the function of the prophet is to stir, to cause that which is within to come out, to find that God cell and enlarge it, to bring the innermost outer. Because when you're looking at the word, and I've talked about this before, but John 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We're typically taught that the Word is the Bible, and the Word has never been the Bible, and the Bible's never been the Word. That's more of a modern mess up. Reality, the word used there being logos, has nothing to do with anything written. The word logos is logic, it's reasoning, it's a plan, and it's a purpose. Which is why the prophet themselves is a word made flesh. This is what Yeshua was, the word made flesh. He was the promises of God manifested in human form. The promises. So if the apostolic functions from a kingdom, the prophetic functions from promise. Or you could also say that the prophetic comes from the promised land itself. It functions from connecting with that which is not yet, but will be before it is, and making it now. Interceding, closing the gap between what is now and what should be. Calling the purpose within a thing to now. Getting things moving, getting things stirring, so that what is within a thing or within a person begins to awaken. The prophets are masters of awakening. In that if they're talking to a region, they're awakening the purpose of a region. If they're talking to a people, they're awakening the purpose and the identity of a person. The prophetic is all identity based. It's all restoration based. And anything outside of that isn't the prophetic. They may be prophesying, the gift may be in action, but it's not the prophetic. If it's not stirring, if it's not awakening, if it's not restoring, which may be done many different ways. The process of awakening may be soft, may be rigid, may be rough, might be tough, might seem rude, might be super kind and super gentle. There's no limit on what the prophetic is allowed to be, but it must meet the criteria of stirring. That's one of the main things Yeshua taught me, is that you don't recognize a prophet by their ability to prophesy, because everyone can do that. Anyone can be trained to prophesy. That's not hard. A prophet is recognized by their ability to stir. Everything that they do stirs up creation around them. Every word that they utter, when they're mature, because there is such a thing as an immature prophet. They're just not good at their job yet. So when it even comes into the topic of false prophets, false apostles, false pastors, what is that? That's just someone who's in a position that they're not called to be. I wish there was such a focus on false pastors, because most pastors never got their call from God. They got it from seminary school. They got it because they grew up in church, they loved the Lord, and they thought that this is the next step. In reality, there's more pastors who were never called than there are apostles or prophets or evangelists who were never called. Some would say it doesn't matter. I believe it does, because that means that they're occupying a space that they're not meant to, which means that their actual space is left vacant, which means we're missing out on the truth of what they were put on the earth to be, put on the earth to do. So there's people suffering because their help is masquerading as something it's not called to be. Which really goes into the topic of humility and pride, as I've talked about in other videos. So how do you know if you're called to be a prophet? How do you know if you're called to be an apostle? How do you know if you're called to be anything? If God tells you you are. That's the criteria. If God says that you are, you are. Far too often I've seen where people have added so much criteria to what a real prophet, what a real this, what a real that is, to the point where they fail to actually define it. And then they wonder why so many people are self-diagnosing themselves into offices and functions. And that's because, well, I blame some of you. You taught people that if they are socially awkward, they're a black sheep, people don't understand them, they're outcast, they're weird, they're strange, they don't have friends, that they pray a lot and they love the Lord and they read their Bible and they serve at the church and they help you for free and do all this other stuff, that makes them a prophet. Now you're wondering why all these dysfunctional people are walking around calling themselves holy functions, and that's because you defined it as such. And that's one of the things I like doing, is defining terms. I have a full catalog on Patreon where I define terms. Links are always in the description. But the apostolic is all about bringing heaven to earth. Externally. The prophetic is all about bringing the heaven you, because heaven is within, to earth you. So they're both bringing heaven to earth. One works from within a thing, the other works from outside of a thing. One is awakening, the other is like a master builder architect. One is a land developer. The other is trying to awake the sleep. And they work very beautifully together. But I don't want to ramble. I believe this got the point across well. If you feel that you're called to this, we need you. If you're called to this and you're masquerading as something else, we need you as this. Why doesn't earth look like heaven all the way yet? The apostles are masquerading as pastors. They're planting churches instead of making earth look like heaven, because seminary school taught them that apostles plant churches. That's not in the Bible either. But I'll stop picking with y'all. Y'all be blessed.